Like I always believed that nobody loved me, but actually underneath that was I'm unlovable. And so because of that, nobody loved me. So I could clear nobody loves me all day long, but when it's sitting on I'm unlovable, it's never really going to actually drop. We got to find these deepest belief systems. So we help our clients be able to find these linchpins that they can go, and then we go and rewire these belief systems. And listen to what I told you before. Before, what happens with this new information? It goes in here. We're not trying to get our brain to act different. Your brain's always going to brain. We got to know how our brain works. We're not going to override our brain. We're going to know how it works, and we're going to work within the confines of the brain. So we know what the brain's going to do with this new information. Once we rewire it, it's going to bypass this thinking brain that could know that it's true, and it's going to go here. That's why we had to clear all this stuff out, because that new information is going to run through that reticular activating system, all of the events that have happened in our life, all of the programming, all of the stuff that we've had, all of our emotions, and it can't run into the bullshit meter. Remember, I told you it's going to remind you of everything you've done since 1992. Well, all that's got to be gone. Otherwise, it's just going to go right back. So you might have some temporary relief. And this is, many of your listeners may have experienced this too. They've done a lot of work, but then it's like it comes back. It's good for a little bit, but then, like a few weeks in, and I'm right back doing the same thing that I was doing, feeling the same things I was feeling. This is why. There's nothing wrong with you. You just didn't understand how your brain works. And most people aren't going to teach us. And quite frankly, therapy and anything else, there's big business in you continuing to sit on their couch every week. Mm-hmm. My job is to help you get independent in your own mental wellness. No one should ever have to decide if they have enough money to get well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Truth That Heals podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and it sounds like I'm whispering. I'm sorry for those who are listening. I have a very bad voice. I just came with a bad case of bronchitis, but here we are, and I'm not going to be talking the whole time. I have a special guest. She's going to be sharing a bit about her life story and about the amazing work that she does. Please welcome to the podcast today's guest, Melissa Gayle. Melissa, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to it.
Thank you for being here. We've been trying to do this podcast for over, 2 months now?
Almost 2 months, yeah.
Almost 2 months. Something happens. I get sick, or I don't know, shit happens. But here we are. Look at us. We're doing the podcast, and it's great to have you on board finally. Thank you.
Yes, thank you as well. I'm excited to talk to your listeners and see what the show is all about. And most importantly, talk about the truth that heals, because healing really is possible.
Yes. Well, your life story is one hell of a story. It's very hard to really get into. So it can be a trigger warning for some who are listening. But honestly, as an interviewer in these stories, it's hard for me to really know where to start. So I'll leave it to you. Like, where would you like to start in sharing a bit about your background story?
Well, I think that it's more important where we're going than where we're from, but we can't ignore where we were from to get where we're going. It will never work. We have to confront the truth. We have to deal with the truth. And my truth, I was raped and sex trafficked on and off from 2 to 25. And I always say that that's not what ruined my life. What ruined my life was who I decided I was because of rape. And with that, I created lenses and I went out and wrecked my own life for a decade. And if you're someone that has trauma, PTSD, CPTSD, you might find that to be the same. And people who have trauma, we've seen it over and over again, or you might know someone who has trauma who continually over and over again continues to make the wrong decisions, or they get close to success and then they self-sabotage and these different things. And when we start to understand the brain and we understand why we do the things that we do, when we understand self-sabotage, when we understand that our brain is only here to protect us, everything changes.
Wow. So, I mean, from the background that you lived through, it sounds like the person you are today, she didn't just emerge out of nowhere. It sounds like you really put in a lot of work and a lot of self-understanding. I'm not sure all that you've had to do, but knowing what you've been through, can you walk us through what were your first steps to understanding who you are, and how the brain works?
Well, the first thing that I did was I had a relentless pursuit to want to heal. If it was like pay my electricity or somebody said that they could heal trauma, I was I was choosing to heal trauma. So the first thing is like decide. You got to decide that healing is possible no matter what, no matter how many things that you try that don't work. You have to decide in yourself, I'm not giving up. I'm worth it. I matter first and foremost. And for me, that was actually hard to do. I started my healing journey at 19 years old. I had just had my son and was a single mom. And I knew that I needed to heal for him. I didn't have a whole lot of self love for myself, but I knew that, like, if I was going to take care of this baby, that I was going to have to work on myself. And that, went on to another 20-year. I started therapy really whenever I was 8 years old, but about 19 as an adult, like from my own choice, which is what most of your listeners are, regardless of how old you are. If you're an adult, you can choose today that you're going to heal. And that's what's going to require. That's the first step, is you deciding to heal. And then you go on this pursuit. So for myself, and probably like many of you, I went through the medical system. I tried emotional boot camps. I tried, you name it. I would say probably in the medical system, EMDR was probably the most effective thing that I had tried. But even that, once I learned how the brain works, it's bypassing a lot of the safety mechanisms that, God put into our brain. And so when I started to realize that what was actually driving my behavior, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, was it wasn't the thing that happened. It was who I decided I was. When I decide that sex equals love, you could see how that lens could get you in a lot of trouble as an adult. I
Mm.
decided that I'm unworthy. I decided that I'm not good enough. I decided that I'm different. I decided that I'm broken. I decided something's wrong with me. So you go and we put these lenses. So when we look at a belief system, what we really have to understand, you can go get yourself a good therapist, you get yourself a good hypnotherapist, you can do NLP, you can, whatever it is, no matter the modality, what someone's trying to do is help you change these belief systems, these filters that we have, and the way that we see life. Because how we respond to our life and what we choose then becomes our behavior, and our behavior becomes our experience. I don't believe that you are what you do, but what you do will be your experience to life. That is a guaranteed. And when someone who has filters that, anything is possible, and another person who maybe grew up poor and says that, has the belief that we can't afford that, whatever that is, they're going to have two totally different experiences of life. What they go after in life, what they choose is going to be possible, are going to be completely different. So if you get someone who has whatever therapy modality you're using, they're trying to change those belief systems ultimately. And what I didn't understand, and what I came to understand, the truth that heals, actually, the real thing is understanding how we take on information. So, I couldn't really fix something that I didn't understand. And I thought I could go in and just work on all of my thoughts and all of my stuff. But what happens, so I would go and work with someone, like, let's say I'm going to go work on worthiness, with someone, and they do their hypnotherapy or they do whatever. When we understand how the brain works, we think information comes in, we think about it, and then we send it to our subconscious mind to think about later, called a memory. But that's not what happens. Actually, what happens is we take on information with our ears or our eyes, and we process it with a picture. All of us do. Even right now, you're taking this information on and you're listening, and your listeners are taking it on with their ears. Maybe they're watching me, but they're still getting an image. And it's actually bypassing this thinking brain, this critical factor where we could make anything make sense of it. And it goes straight to the unconscious mind, to something called the reticular activating system. And this houses all of our programming, all of our parental programming, our environmental programming, our religious programming, our social programming, our educational programming, all the events that have happened in our life, all our emotions, all our belief systems. And then we take that image, we delete, generalize, and distort that image to whatever's here, whatever's programmed here, and we move that distorted image to the frontal lobe to think about, and we call that the truth.
Oh.
And it's not the truth. It's whatever's been programmed for you to believe. And so, one person, that's why you can have two people that have the same experience. They tell the story and it's completely different.
Yeah.
because everything that we do, everything that we see, and everything that we hear, witness, and experience is getting filtered through our own personal programming. And that's why I say, like the whole world's a stage, like, I
Mhm.
mean, the answer is right in front of you. It is. We delete, generalize, and distort it out. I was married 3 different times. Why to, the same person, but with a different face on it. Why? Because anything, when you're not worthy, you're not good enough, sex equals love, you're those things, people who are respecting you, treating you with dignity, loving you, if they even made it to my subconscious mind, my brain made up with, oh, they're probably lying to me, oh, they're probably trying to use me, oh, they're probably trying to do whatever my programming is. And then what do? I put them to the wayside, and then I will accept the one who is in my comfort zone. And my comfort zone was abuse. My comfort zone was, people taking advantage of me, people using me, people hurting me. But you're never going to get out of your comfort zone unless you rewire what that comfort zone is. And so ultimately, what I realized was a belief system, how a belief system is created, that outside influence coupled with a deep emotion, we decide something. So even if you get a good therapist that can help you here, unless you're tackling the root of the root, this root of the behavior is never going to change. No matter what you do, no matter how much, eventually you go work with someone and you're like, oh wow, I'm worthy now. I worked with Coach Amy and now I feel like so worthy. But that new information comes in and bypasses this and goes right back to this. And it pulls up every single thing that you've done since 1992 as to why you've decided that you're not worthy. And it will go right back to I'm not worthy, never was worthy, never going to be worthy. And then you will live from that again. So what we had to start doing, I had to figure out a way to be able to tackle these things underneath the root of the belief system. What's holding up the belief system? When we tackle that, we dismantle that. If these are the belief system, if these are all of the emotions we have, and these are all the influences, this is kind of how we see our life. Like this, we're not getting the whole picture. But when we remove this and remove that, then we can look at these belief systems and we can finally see the truth.
Something that I really caught on from what you've said, there are quite a few points. Um, one of them was the distorted truth, because sometimes
Yeah.
that distorted truth looks so real, and we are, as you've
Yeah.
said, we get conditioned, and then there's a bit of that self-sabotage. But going back to those distorted truths of sex equals love, I'm not good
Yeah.
enough, I am not worthy, for someone who has not yet started their path towards healing, um, what advice would you give them? Like, where can someone start?
Well, you can look at when was the first time that I ever felt unworthy? Where did that come from? Whose voice is that? Maybe it's your mom's voice. Maybe it came from your mom. Maybe you were born with it because, trauma is stored in the body at a cellular level and you were in your mom and your mom was in your grandma, and maybe it's not even yours. Maybe you were born with it and wasn't even something. And that happens with all of us, actually. None of us actually sit down and do that. So what I would do is start looking at, when was the first time that I felt this? Why did I believe this was true? Where did this come from? And start dismantling it. So, because
Mm,
ultimately the reason, even if this is the other reason with a lot of trauma work that I see in this space, is they want to just deal with the one trauma. So you might have something in your childhood, but what did I tell you before? That's not what the worst part is. The worst is I made lenses,
mhm.
new belief system, this distorted truth that now clouds my judgment. And I take this lens with every other influence I have. So now it's not just the rape whenever I was 5 years old, or it's not just, when mom beat me, whenever I decided that I wasn't worthy, but I took that unworthiness and I dealt with it with my dad. And I took that unworthiness with my first boyfriend that I had, or they might have taken it to their first girlfriend, or with their wife, or they're living, or they're raising their children from a place of unworthiness. And now they're passing this on to their children. We have, it's not just one event. And so we've got to be honest with ourselves. And this is the part that's not easy, but it's freedom is on the other side of it. When I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in a lot of religious texts, and I will tell you the truth will set you free. It isn't pretty always,
Mhm.
but neither is the lie that you're telling yourself. The lie that you're telling yourself, no matter how scary the truth is, the lie you're telling yourself is hurting you 15,000 times more than the truth of whatever it is that you're running from. That I can promise you. And I have walked people through things that are unimaginable. things that I was raped and sex trafficked, I told you, and things that make my trauma look like baby stuff. It's nothing compared to the life that they lived, the people that they chose to have families with, the people that they chose to interact with, their friends that they had or not friends. What you see is whatever your comfort zone, if that is abuse, if that is neglect, if that is, we will recreate these patterns over and over again until we can rise up, face it, heal that original wound, change the lens, and then start living something different. And when we do that, I'm telling you, magic happens. I have every reason to be on the street, to be addicted to drugs, and no one would fault me for it. Nobody. They would just look at her life and say, wow, what an unfortunate situation. Really feel bad for her. That's really sad. And I could just be on the corner. And I'm not, because of what I told you before in the beginning, a relentless pursuit to heal. I knew something was out there. There has to be an answer for me, and it took me till I was 39 years old. And I told you, whenever I was 19. So it took me 20 years to be able to find it. And so, and when that happened, I knew, I promised God, I was like, I don't know why you gave me these tools, but I promise you I'll spend the rest of my life helping people heal. Everyone wants a solution to heal trauma, and it's not easy to find.
Something that you've said right now, which I think I would like to highlight, is the relentless pursuit for truth, and also realizing that sometimes the truth isn't going to be so pretty, but once you see it, then you can start rewiring, actually, those old beliefs.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to get into the work that you do. It's about rewiring, healing trauma, growth. Can you tell us what is the work that you do?
Yeah. So I use a modality called bioenergetics reprogramming method. And what we do is actually subconsciously look at all of the influences. So unlike traditional therapy or traditional modalities, like I said, that's going to deal with the one situation, the rape or the beating or whatever happened to, poverty or whatever it is that you had in your life and that you experienced, most people are going to come in and really work with you on that. And what I found over my own 30 years of therapy, and not to mention the 10 years of me doing this work, is that that's not the problem. The problem is the lenses. The lenses is what has to be done. And because we form the belief system there, and then we take it into every other relationship we have, anything other than fully clearing out the foundation of what's holding up all of these belief systems will be incomplete. Things are going to continue to pop back up and pop back up and pop back up over and over again because you haven't plucked the root of the root. So you work on the belief system from this one thing, that's great, but you have all this other stuff with other people that you've been doing it. And so the first thing that we do is we come in and we look at, what made Ryan Ryan? What are all the influences that made you from the time you were a baby? And we're going to look at all of it, right? Not just a piece of it, not just the bad, because even we took the bad situation that created the filter, and then we took those filters into the good. So it's not just the bad that we have to rewire. It's the system that we created, this incredible machine that is this subconscious mind. And trust you, it will propel you to the rest of your life. It will propel you to whatever you're wired for. So if you're wired for success, if you're wired for fame, if you're wired to be on the beach, if you're wired for poverty, whatever you're wired for, that's where you'll land every single time. And so in the beginning, when you're first looking at it, you're looking at this, wow, this is like a lot of stuff that I have to do. And you're not wrong. It is. But my gosh, look at what we do all day with these things. These filters become the brakes for every single thing that you want to do. Every single time you try to go for it and then you pump the brakes, that's these belief systems saying, I can't do this. I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not worthy of this. I can't have this. Like, fill in the fucking blank, like we've got a whole slew of things that we believe that keep us from doing. And I'm sure that you experienced this just putting your podcast up. Yes. That very first time trying to decide, like, you had all these things that who's going to want to be on my podcast? Like we have all this stuff that comes into our head that says, I'm stupid, or I'm not smart enough for this, or I don't know what I'm doing, or, fill in the blank. Well, all of those things came from something. It came from a situation at school or where you were, maybe your art teacher and, you had this picture that was amazing. And then they're like, oh, you colored out all the lines. And you're like, oh my gosh, and you feel that shame or that embarrassment. And it seems so little, but it's not in the psyche. In the psyche, there is nothing that is too small. The only thing we have to decide are what are these major things that we had that created the emotion. So in the example of the teacher, right? The teacher, the student feels all proud of their work and they go show the teacher. The influence would be the teacher here. And then the teacher tells them something and they all of a sudden feel shamed or humiliated or less than, or they probably made up all kinds of things. In that deep emotion, they decided, I'm not an artist. I'm no good. I'm not good enough, whatever it is that they believe. And then we take that lens. And now we're all of a sudden in our job and we're trying to do something new and we can't do it. And it's from something that our 7-year-old decided. 95% of all of the belief systems that you have are fully formed before we're 8 years old, before we finish our 7th year of life. They're fully formed. If you have not done anything to confront these belief systems, you are still living with the same belief systems that your 7-year-old decided was true. That's facts, and if you want, and one thing I do know and that I do believe is true is that we can be, do, and have anything that we want. Maybe not with our current structure belief systems, but that doesn't make it any less true. True being what is, but what is the real truth? I told you what the real truth is. The truth is what you delete, generalize, and distort. We move that to the frontal lobe and we call that the truth. And we will never even attempt anything that is beyond that. If we can even see it, because a lot of times we'll delete the whole opportunity outside of it. There's an opportunity that's coming in and I'm like, oh no, that's probably spam, probably a scam, probably this or that. And then the opportunity's gone. We'll never believe that we can't believe in the mind. And you hear that saying, what is that saying? Whatever you believe you can achieve, but it's really whatever you don't believe you will never achieve.
Yes.
More importantly, because just because you believe it doesn't mean that you will achieve it. But if you don't believe it, you definitely won't. That's 100% every single time. So the first thing that you can do, and we see people, they want to go out with all this gusto and we say, press the easy button. Go clear the thing that's going to keep you from it. Whatever's the block, whenever you have this big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever that is, and you look at it, what are the things that, that voice in your head that says, oh, I can't do it. And then we just want to be like, oh, it's fine. We're going to move on. Well, you can do that and just push through with your own grit and willpower to make it happen. You can do that, but it's exhausting. And God forbid, like get sick or something like that. You're having push yourself through. You only have so much willpower. However, when your brain, when you have rewired your subconscious, not from where you've been, but to where you're going, you've got your whole subconscious mind, which is this incredible computer that actually pushes you and requires a lot less willpower. 96% of everything we're doing is from the subconscious mind. The other 4%, that's your education, your goals, and everything else. Only 4% of your brain we're using. And we're dragging this 96%, all of these belief systems, trudging along, trying to get with this 4% of our brain. But what if all these goals and the education, everything that you did had 96% of your brain on board and it became the engine that pushed this forward instead of this 4% dragging this 96%. That's what's possible on the other side of healing. That's actually the truth. But it requires you requiring your truth.
Yes. And thank you for sharing the possibilities of what life can be like, what it should be like once we remove those lenses or once we navigate through those untrue belief systems. It can be a lot more resilient, I would say, or even more inspiring, or whatever word you want to put. Life can be that.
Yeah. Life can be that. Life can be, again, you can be, do, and have anything that you want, right? And once you clear the path to be able to do that. So, in this process of bioenergetics, first thing we're doing is looking at all these influences, clearing them out, rewiring the relationship and the things that you have, the experiences that you've had, changing those really. And it uses several different modalities of therapy in there, from timeline therapy, inner child healing work. And we're we're reestablishing the relationship that you have with all of these. I tell people, one thing about this work is, one, everyone's going to know you're doing it. This work shows up on the outside where it matters. Every single relationship you have will be different over the course of these next 4 months. The program, our program is 4 months, but we're going to walk you through this process and in that 4-month process, and everything is going to be different. Once we've got through that, the biggest portion is getting through the influence. It does take quite some time, because you can imagine all the influences you have. You just even think about it right now, from a baby till now, you could probably very quickly come up with at least 15 influences that are major influences in your life, And but once you've had that, now we've cleared out that major foundation. What's the next thing? Emotions, right? Outside influence coupled with a deep emotion, we decide something, right? So now we're going to go into the major emotions that are holding these belief systems up. Well, we've got 4 major emotions that everyone has. We have anger, rage, sadness, hurt, fear, anxiety, guilt, and shame. And so these are all held in gestalts. This is actually where emotional baggage comes from, the word emotional baggage, because we house all of these emotions in something like a little bag. And this stuff gets filled up with all the imprints of the influences that we have, the events that happened in our life, all the things that made us mad. Well, some of us had our gestalts filled up by the time we were 7, 8, 9, or 10. No one teaches you how to actually regulate your emotions, communicate with your emotions, or understand why we even have them. Mostly we're taught to shut up, shut it down, push them down, move forward, go perform, go do the next thing. If you want to feel better, you got to do something to feel better. Never, why do we have these emotions? And actually, we have them to communicate with ourselves. Well, when these gestalts fill up, anger fills up, and it's going to spill out into rage. Sadness is going to spill out into depression. Fear is going to spill out into anxiety. So you don't have a depression problem. You don't have depression. You don't have anxiety. You have a normal, functioning, proper gestalt. We don't know how to work our brain. That's our problem. We don't know how to work our body, and we don't know how to work our emotions. When we do, then we understand there's nothing wrong with me because I'm having an anxiety attack. My fear gestalt's completely full. What I need to do is learn how to lower this gestalt so that I can communicate with the emotion. Regulation means up and down. So your emotional regulation should be, I have emotion and I communicate with it. I do whatever it is. So it communicates with us. Like if you're having guilt, like if you had a proper emotional gestalt and it wasn't filled up with your whole life of things that you feel guilty for. So now we're taking all of this to any situation. If this was all cleared out and our body was just experiencing guilt, you know what it's going to do? It's going to tell us something. It might say, hey, you were really harsh with your daughter this morning. And I know you were just in a rush but maybe you want to go and apologize to her for that. Oh man. Yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh. It's communicating with you. Guilt is telling you. Anger may, rise up to tell you to go take action, to go do something about this. There's, something's wrong. It's, I liken it to a fire alarm. Your emotions are like the fire alarm. Okay. So when the fire alarm goes off, we don't go rush to the fire alarm and start hitting the fire alarm and trying to get the fire alarm to go. Like, no, we go and put the fire out.
That's right.
Right. The emotions are here to communicate something to you so that you can get to the real thing that needs to be handled. That's what we want to do, is to get all of these gestalts in a perfectly functioning emotional regulatory state where you can communicate with them. This is real emotional regulation. This is real self-care. Well, when we've done that, now we're talking about we've really cleared. So anyway, once we've done this in this process, we've now cleared out all the influences that have created all of these imprints inside these emotional gestalts. Now we've lowered all the gestalts and gotten wisdom from that. Now we can start looking at these belief systems. And we're going to say, okay, what are like the 20 to 30 belief systems that are really keeping me stuck in my life? And they usually come down to 6 or 7 universal. I'm not safe. The world isn't safe. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'll always be alone. I'm unlovable, right? And on top of it, we've got hundreds of belief systems that sit on top of it. But what we're looking for are these linchpin belief systems. Like I always believed that nobody loved me. But actually, underneath that was I'm unlovable. And so because of that, nobody loved me. So I could clear nobody loves me all day long, but when it's sitting on I'm unlovable, it's never really going to actually drop. We got to find these deepest belief systems. So we help our clients be able to find these linchpins that they can go, and then we go and rewire these belief systems. And listen to what I told you before. Before, what happens with this new information? It goes in here. We're not trying to get our brain to act different. Your brain's always going to brain. We got to know how our brain works. We're not going to override our brain. We're going to know how it works, and we're going to work within the confines of the brain. So we know what the brain's going to do with this new information. Once we rewire it, it's going to bypass this thinking brain that could know that it's true, and it's going to go here. That's why we had to clear all this stuff out, because that new information is going to run through that reticular activating system, all of the events that have happened in our life, all of the programming, all of the stuff that we've had, all of our emotions, and it can't run into the bullshit meter. Remember, I told you it's going to remind you of everything you've done since 1992. Well, all that's got to be gone. Otherwise, it's just going to go right back. So you might have some temporary relief. And this is, many of your listeners may have experienced this too. They've done a lot of work, but then it's like it comes back. It's good for a little bit, but then, like a few weeks in, and I'm right back doing the same thing that I was doing, feeling the same things I was feeling. This is why. There's nothing wrong with you. You just didn't understand how your brain works. And most people aren't going to teach us. And quite frankly, therapy and anything else, there's big business in you continuing to sit on their couch every week.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to help you get independent in your own mental wellness. No one should ever have to decide if they have enough money to get well. No one should have to decide if they're going to get in trouble from their boss to be able to take off work so that they can have their mental health. And that's what we're doing. That's what we have to do, which just creates a bigger problem. Can't take off work, or I don't have the money, or you don't have this. No, we should be. And so I've spent my life helping people, educating people on how their brain works, why they're not experiencing the results. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not depressed. You are experiencing depression. Completely different. You do not have depression. Depression is something that happens just whenever your sadness gestalt fills up, and you have too many sad things in that gestalt that can't fill up. What's going to happen when these things fill up? It doesn't matter which one. You're going to revert back to the age you were the first time you experienced it. That's why we're going to high emotion, low IQ. You hear that? That's why. Because people are triggering out and they're becoming the age they were the first time they experienced it, or they're going to get sick, or both. 95% of all autoimmune stems back to trauma. Our external experience is from what is going on internally. And I won't lie, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of work, fighting against yourself every single day of your life too.
Yeah.
But it's that, and this is what we do.
It's necessary. If you're not gonna, sorry, my voice is all fucked up. If you're not gonna do the work, you're gonna. Yes, it can be a lifelong journey of work, but if you don't do the work, you're gonna have a lifelong journey of misery or of
misery. Yeah. Of all kinds of things and more, because you become your own abuser, because you are the one who is. It's your comfort zone that continues to go and seek out. And I'm not saying you do this on purpose or anything like that, but it doesn't matter. The brain is going to seek comfort. And if your comfort zone is abuse, well, you have probably found yourself in many abusive situations if you were abused as a child. And it's not by accident. It's not because you have, a sign that says abuse me. You are your own walking sign, and you go find the abuse because it's comfortable. And anything that's not going to abuse you or going to treat you in a different way, you're going to delete, generalize, and distort that, and it will go to the wayside. And the person who can abuse you, or the person that can. And you'll experience this everywhere. It won't just be in your romantic relationships. You'll see that your boss is abusive, your job is like unacceptable. It really bleeds into the four core: business, relationship, spiritual, mind, body. Like, it's going to touch it all. These belief systems that we have. And that's another truth that's hard to swallow. But man, if you can swallow it and just say, hey, I am creating this life.
Well, now
it's hard.
Yes. For this part of the podcast, I'm going to actually cut it short just because of, unfortunately, with my voice and everything, I'm enjoying this. But for this part of the podcast, I have a question that I ask all of my guests. Are you ready?
I am.
My question is, Melissa, what is your truth that heals?
My truth that heals is facing myself, being brave every single day, not lying to myself. Real truth that heals is not lying to yourself. And you can't guarantee that you're not lying to yourself unless you'll clear this out. So my truth is that before I focus on my frontal lobe, I focus on my subconscious mind, which is running my life. I can't see my unconscious mind is the only thing that's going to say what's really true. And if it is not wired to the truth, I'll always live a lie.
Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. You do have your, the work that you do. Can you remind us the name of it and where people can discover more?
Absolutely. So my business is the Intention Academy, and you can go to theintentionacademy.com. There's a free training on how to rewire this. What does this look like? It will go over, in more detail on the brain, understanding that it's free. You can just click the link there on my website. And if you have any more questions, I'm on all my socials, Tame Your Trauma, on pretty much every single social that there is, and Melissa Gayle Searles on Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing about the work that you do, as well as the work that you've done to get through all that messy, distorted truth to find your authentic truth and to be the person who you are today, who is helping others to restore their lives. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. And thank you, Ryan. I'm so glad that you have this show. It is so important because there is truth that actually does heal, and each one of us, it's our responsibility to find it. So thank you for doing your part.
Thank you, Melissa. And quick note to the audience, those who've tuned in, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button. If you're watching this, especially like on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, or wherever you're listening, give a like, share, comment. Tell us what it is that you think, how you feel, your opinions, or if you want to leave a little comment to Melissa, go ahead and leave a comment there as well. And if you would like to help me out, you can do so by supporting the podcast, the YouTube channel, all of that, and buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/truth7. All of your contributions help me to keep the podcast going, helps me to continue inviting awesome guests as our guests today, and helps me to do simple things like paying the bills. So all of that really helps out. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in. And Melissa, one more time, thank you so much for being an amazing guest here on the Truth That Heals podcast.
You're so welcome. Thank you.